Nice having you back here. And today we are going to start with lecture 7, talking about mental, scientific, and technological revolution. We're going to discuss the fourth revolution, and we are going to then to enter the interesting field of the concept of experience and post-experience in the digital age, in particular the iPhone watershed, because really the iPhone has changed a lot, not just in the technology market, but even in terms of structure of the cognitive system of our minds. And then we are going to address this interesting concept. Is there still room for the truth in the digital era? That I know your opinion, and but there is a debate about this, and we are going to debate it. And then at the end, I will try to give you at the end of each lecture some hints for possible projects that you can do at home. So that can be interesting. Of course, I understand that some of you can be a bit confused, uncertain. So I'm going to give some hints for the take-home projects. Some, you can take them. In this case, please tell me, because I don't want everybody to do the same things, even because otherwise the originality is going to be a problem. No, just one is going to get 3 points. So it doesn't... It's not convenient to crowd too much on a team. Now, in this lecture, what do we mean by technological revolutions? And we're going to discuss scientific evolution and mental evolution, technological, scientific, and mental evolutions, according to 2 books. The first is Luciano Floridi's fourth revolution, that you already know. The second one is a wonderful book from Alessandro Baricco. That's The Game. You find both in English and in Italian, if you prefer. And we are going to see why they are so relevant. Is the digital revolution a technological or scientific revolution, or a mental revolution? For revolution. Who are the architects and protagonists of the digital revolution, the fall of the 20th century elites and the new elites that are showing up? The idea of augmented humanity and experience and post-experience, truth, post-truth. All this in 2 hours. Great. So it's going to be a hell of a trip. Yeah, sure. Coming back. What is the truth in the digital revolution era? So we start from Cartesius, René Descartes. Some of you can remember from your high school studies the concept of clear and distinct ideas. And we start from this. And we see now if there is still room for clear and distinct ideas in the age of the digital, and some of you are still very doubtful. And we're going to see Baricco on one hand, and the concept of post-truth according to Baricco and according to Ferraris. Good. Ferraris is the leader of the movement of the new realism, while Cartesius is a giant of the classical rationalism. Now, let's start addressing this concept of mental, scientific, and technological evolution. So, according to Baricco, there is this concept of technological revolution and mental revolutions. And he says there are many revolutions which change the world, and often they are technological ones. But few revolutions change man and do it radically. Perhaps we should call them mental revolutions, because we consider them able to generate a new idea of humanity. It's a bit different from the concept of scientific revolution that we receive from Florida. There is something in common. Some of you knows Thomas Kuhn, the structure of the scientific revolutions. Never heard about? Okay, go and look for it. Because was the first guy who started with this concept that says the different ages of, not just of thought, but even of civilization, start with a change of paradigm. So from when the humanity changes completely its view of the internal and external world, of the position of the world in the universe, and their own position as human being inside this world. So, talking about technological mental revolutions, we could start wondering if humanism and Enlightenment, l'umanesimo e l'illuminismo, are two major mental revolutions. This will be a little bit a bilingual lecture, because I understand that certain concepts are not easy, certain nuances to express, and so I'll try to express them both in English and in Italian. Now, what's humanism? Cos'è l'umanesimo? Some of you may remember that it's a philosophical position that emphasizes the individual and social potential and agency of human beings, which it considers the starting point for serious moral and philosophical inquiry. So before, there was just at the center of the world, in the ancient medieval world, God. At a certain point, there is the discovery of the role of the human being as a protagonist of the thought, of the philosophical thought, of, you see, in the literature, no? In Italy, Divina Commedia is one of those masterpieces. But you see the flourishing of the economy in Florence, for example, in all of Europe. No, you see a rebirth, a renaissance of thought. The other one is the Enlightenment, l'Illuminismo. It's an intellectual movement in the 17th and 18th centuries that sought to improve society through fact-based reason and inquiry. So, even in this case, and I could say Voltaire, l'Encyclopédie Française. So, looking even in a bit, how to say, direct, even cynical way at facts and on a fact-based reason and inquiry. And the reason is at the center of the interpretation of the world. And these two major philosophical and cultural streams, intellectual movements, have characterized two important moments of the history, certainly of Europe. I couldn't say the world because many other things are happening in the world, but certainly they are very relevant. But they are, in this term, intellectual movement. And while for Baricco there are two major technological revolutions, two of many technological revolutions in his view. For example, the invention of the press. Some of you has read a book by Umberto Eco called The Name of the Rose, or seen a movie on this title? Yep. Okay, guys, in this case, I would suggest you to read this book because it's fascinating, absolutely. And I have no the chance to spoil everything about this, but certainly I would like, at the end of the day, what I can tell you is that it's in the 11th, 12th century, and all the stories inside a monastery, Val d'Aosta, on the mountains, and where it is, until 27. Yeah. And at the moment, the monks were busy the whole day to write codes, scrivere codici, miniati. This was extremely, of course, hard-working kind of activity because it takes years in order to write un codice miniato, a code. So basically, writing the ancient books, copying the ancient books into these codes. And the revolution of the press is very important because what happened is that instead of having a lot of slaves that were spending their time writing with a very low productivity, with the press, suddenly you have the opportunity of addressing an incredible number of people. So an incredible diffusion of culture, ideas, through books, of course. And this is the moment where the history, according to Floridi, enters its key moment. The second moment, but this is a technological revolution. It doesn't involve an intellectual movement that's changing the way of looking at the world, the concept of the world. The second one is the invention of the steam engine and the industrial revolution. In this case, of course, it's a dramatic change of the mode of production. Changes completely the quality of life of the people, very often even worsening. Because, of course, these people were working 18 hours a day, even babies, and so on. So very high price paid to the Industrial Revolution. But certainly, this is a major, major technological change of paradigm. My technological change of paradigm doesn't involve a change of vision of the world. So, substantially, this is the major difference between technological and mental revolutions for Baricco. The mental revolution are intellectual movements that change the way of looking inside and inside the world. The invention, the technological revolution, the opposite, have to deal with the modes of production. And so, according to Baricco, this is the case of the digital revolution. You can perceive the digital revolution that's both. It considers like both a mental and a technological revolution at the same time. So, according to him, this is the case because we perceive in that small revolution, a technological one, the pace of a bigger revolution, which is openly mental and has the pace of a major revolution of the mind. So the digital revolution is this. Very innovative characteristics of not being simply an intellectual movement, of not being simply a technological change, but being both a major revolution of the mind and inside a relatively small technological revolution. So, moving on. I tried to give you some conceptual scheme. So Bison, I gave it for Baricco, for Floridi. For Floridi, scientific revolutions are changes in our theoretical understanding of reality. They redefine the conceptual framework we use to describe and explain the world. A scientific evolution changes what we know and how we think about reality. While technological evolution, in contrast, are about changes in our interaction with reality. They modify our capabilities and agency rather than our theoretical models. So, scientific evolutions have an epistemic character about knowledge and understanding. Technological evolutions are practical and ontological, are about doing and being, how we construct and inhabit the infosphere, about which you know everything at this point. So in the words of Luciano Floridi, science changes our interpretation of the world. Technology changes the world we interpret. What's the difference? I can make an example. For example, certainly the Copernicus revolution, saying that is the sun that's revolving around, is the Earth that's revolving around the sun and not vice versa, is certainly a major scientific revolution according to Floridi. But it's inscribed inside the mental revolution of the humanism according to Baricco. So in some way, the scientific revolution concept of Floridi is a kind of conceptual subset of the mental revolution of Baricco. Are you with me so far? Good. We are just building the tools for the analysis. So, according to Floridi, he says scientific and technological revolution are different from political revolutions. Political revolution, according to Hannah Arendt, are characterized by violence and high speed. In general, this happens. French Revolution, Russian Revolution, General Revolution, there is some blood around. Lot. Technological and scientific evolution are not violent per se, but their effect can be so. They develop over a long period of time. This is questionable. If you were Giordano Bruno, saying that, of course, he had different ideas from the official ideas of the church about a number of philosophical issues, and was burnt alive in a piazza in Rome, probably you wouldn't agree so much with this concept of scientific evolution of violence per se. But this is, they say that the borderlines are blurring here. However, Thomas Kuhn, I put it here. Thomas Kuhn claims that scientific revolutions undermine an entire paradigm of the world. And until the new paradigm succeeds, the scientific revolution can't occur. That's a concept, in my opinion, and I believe that is underlying both Floridi and Baricco's concepts. Which are the main technological revolution according to Floridi? Agricultural revolution. You know everything about this. We've been discussing it, of course. From the sapiens are moving from hunters to farmers and breeders. Even in this case, the quality of life worsens significantly, because one thing is going around, of course, hunting animals, and not bad at the end of the day. Sometimes you can die, but this is a fact of life. But farming, the earth is slow. It's very tough. And so basically, but this was the price paid by the humanity for consolidating the communities, building the cities, developing the commerce, developing traffics, and so on. The agricultural revolution, 10 millennia before the modern era, is certainly the beginning of everything. And this period, we have even the the shift from the prehistory and the history, you remember, with the beginning of, with the birth of the first form of information, production and transmission with the Mesopotamian clay tables. With the Industrial Revolution, that's at the top, there is still the invention of the steam engine, the second half of the 18th century. We have, even in this case, a major technological revolution. We've been discussing it before. And the third of the major technological revolution, according to Florida, is the information revolution, with the birth of digital technologies in mid-20th century. I wouldn't expand too much, even because they are brilliantly described in the second chapter of the fourth revolution by Florida, that I invite you to carefully review. But the concept is clear, pretty simple. Main scientific revolutions, it gets more interesting. Three scientific revolutions have had both an extroverted and introverted effect. You see, this is what I was saying. Scientific evolution, a change of paradigm according to which the human beings are seeing the world, on one hand, have changed our understanding of the outside world. The heliocentric Copernican revolution versus the former vision that, with the Earth at the center of the cosmos. On the other hand, they have also changed the conception of who we are, our conception of the self. Sitting on top of the Earth, if the Earth suddenly becomes a remote satellite moving around the sun, we feel in some way demoted from the center of the cosmos. So Copernican revolution is exactly this. Heliocentric cosmology, Earth and we ourselves are no longer at the center of the universe. So we start this progressive demotion of the human being from the period of the humanism, where we convinced ourselves that we are at the center of the universe. We start this process of demotion. And before, Copernicus tells us, we are not anymore at the center of the universe. Of course, the church is not so happy. And fortunately, Copernicus was pretty far and cautious. Galileo was closer and not so smart. And so he had, of course, some serious problems before getting his views accepted a few centuries after. Second major scientific revolution, the Darwinian revolution, middle of the 19th century. Each living species is the result of an evolution which develops over time from common ancestors to a process of natural selection. God is not just anymore at the center of the universe, but even demoted from the center of the animal world. Well, it starts to be serious. We have a problem of identity as human beings. And actually, many people, particularly in the US, still are not particularly happy with this. And therefore, we see that there are still Darwinian, the Darwinian concepts are not so unanimously shared. And we have to have respect, of course, of different point of views. But certainly, I would say that this is another major hit to this process of demotion of the human being from the center before the universe and the human being. But, of course, we remain, how to say, at the center of our conscience. Not anymore. The bloody Freudian revolution, has removed us from the center of the realm of pure and transparent consciousness as theorized by Descartes. Descartes, cogito ergo sum res cogitans. The reality is real because the foundation is in my thinking activity and in the fact that I'm perceiving clear and distinct ideas, and this is guaranteed by whom? By God, non-deceptiveness characteristics. God cannot deceive me, and therefore, if I see something, it's real because he gave me this faculty. Great. Freud does not agree. So, the human mind, according to him, is not transparent to itself at all. There is the ego, there is the superego. There is subconsciousness, there are the mechanisms of repression. At the end of the day, our mind is not transparent to ourselves. So, Freud removed us from the center, even of the realm of pure and transparent consciousness. What does remain? Well, the intelligence, of course. The intelligence. And here we start with the fourth revolution. Let's start with Turing. After these three revolutions, as I was saying, we could still argue that we were entitled to our special place at the center of the infosphere thanks to our superior thinking abilities. That is, thanks to the monopoly of intelligence. So, forget the cosmos, forget the animal world, forget the conscience, but at least the intelligence. We have the intelligence. Then, the process for the crisis of this concept comes from far. Three following steps. The Pascal contradiction. The dignity of thought is started saying in 1700. It's a bit laughable. We have a thinking reed. Dire che l'uomo è una canna che pensa di questi tempi ovviamente può essere soggetto a varie ambiguità. But he says we have a thinking reed because a reed is flexible. It's exposed to all the winds. But, so it's the weakest thing that you could think about. But on the other hand, buongiorno. But on the other hand, has even this unique capability, the main thinking reed, to think. But he contradicted himself. Why? Because he invented the Pascaline. So his father was in the administration and tax business. And in order to help, he invented a machine that was able to do the simple arithmetic operations. The first calculator, the ancestor of the computer. And you understand that on one hand he says that the man is the thinking reed, as this unique thing. On the other hand, he invents a machine that is able of some intellectual activity. The crisis continues and worsens with Hobbes, the Leviathan. He says thinking is reasoning. Reasoning is reckoning. Reckoning is adding and subtracting. This could be done by the Pascaline. And finally, Alan Turing, intelligent machinery, completes this travel. The computer as a programmable machine endowed with the ability to process information. So, our digital devices carry out a growing number of tasks which will take us a certain intellectual activity. We don't have anymore the monopoly of the intelligence. We are sharing it. We are no longer even at the center of the infosphere, But we have an eccentric reality in relation to it. You understand? We have a satellite at the border of the world, or the four worlds that we said: the cosmos, the animal world, the conscience, the intelligence. We have sharing the last one. With whom? We are not isolated entities, but informs, interconnected informational organisms who share with biological agents and technical artifacts a global environment which is ultimately made of information. And this is another definition of the infosphere versus the minimum and maximum definition that we gave last time. So, we have completed the circle of the crisis of the human being. We will see next time that something remains. That's the Kantian concept of human dignity. So the man is certainly an eccentric reality in relation to the infosphere, to the world, but is characterized by this unique moral quality. And we can discuss this, but certainly this is the foundation of, what remains of all this process of demotion that the last 500 years have brought to the philosophical thought. So at this point, the challenge of information revolution is to establish a new paradigm of man as an informational animal alongside technological artifacts and biological entities placed within the infosphere. That's what I just told you. So, the ethical characteristics and responsibility of the human being remains as the only unique characteristics of humanity, according to this line of thought. Of course, you can always question everything. But in short, we think, let's go back to technological evolution, scientific evolution. It's a subset, but it's something in common. Mental evolution. So, according to Floridi, the information evolution is scientific and the technological evolution at the same time. It puts together both the conceptual scientific aspect, new vision of the world which revolves around information, and the technological aspect, centered around the development of digital technologies. So, they are two faces of the same reality, according to Floridi. For Baricco, it's different. He says, as far as digital evolution is concerned, that we can perceive in that small revolution, a technological one, the pace of a bigger revolution which is openly mental. I've already said this. For Baricco, we need to invert the map. The mental revolution comes first, then the technological one. Computers have not generated a new form of intelligence. On the contrary, a new form of intelligence has generated computers. A certain mental mutation has obtained the tools which are suitable for his way to be in this world, and has done so very fast with the digital evolution. And I will quote, a small quotation here. We believe the mental revolution is an effect of the technological evolution, but we need to see that it's the opposite. Within the digital world is the cause of everything. But we should, on the contrary, see it as it probably is, that is an effect, the consequence of some kind of mental revolution. First, the mind revolution, then the technological revolution. Within computers generated a new form of intelligence or stupidity, call it what you want, invert the sequence right now, and what do you get? A new kind of intelligence that generated computers. Don't ask yourself what kind of mind would lead us to use Google. Ask yourself what kind of mind actually generated a tool like Google. So that's the concept. That is, in some way, the Copernican revolution of Baricco about the relation between technological and mental revolutions. But where did the architects of the digital revolution come from? And so this is a pretty original concept that Baricco is introducing. So he says that it's a question of searching for the mental revolution from which everything derives. According to Baricco, the root is in the libertarian revolution in the Californian counterculture of the 60s and 70s. More specifically, in an intellectual and mainly scientific elite who detested the traditional American way of life and wanted to change the world. So at the end of the day, it goes back to the movement of the 70s, where that was full of engineers. But those engineers had, how to say, there was a reaction, he says something more, somehow an escape from the 20th century catastrophe, the most dreadful one in the history of humankind. A reaction to all the disaster, to all the massacres of the first part of the last century. A reaction that brought the 68, brought in the US a movement that has generated the internet. The internet was born, of course, as a net to connect the military centers in order to provide a resilient resistance in case of attack, nuclear attack on the US. But became very fast a banner of freedom, openness, inclusivity. All these kind of concepts were embedded in the internet of the first decades. It's interesting now to understand, however, that the same players, the same protagonists of that age, coming to the Elon Musk, the some ways younger but Sam Altman, Bill Gates, are becoming, how to say, the biggest oligopolist of the history of the world economy. So there has been this incredible change over time. So the digital revolution that has their root in the libertarian revolution in Californian counterculture of the 70s has generated, on the other hand, progressively, a system of oligopoly and actually of monopoly in various areas that the human being has never experienced. Some of you want to analyze this process. That's a unique process in the history of the economy and the society. I'd be delighted to support an effort like this. Now, moving on. And this concept, let's go to analyze a little bit. These are not just words. 30 years ago, 1995, Tim Berners-Lee disclosed the concept, actually announced, the World Wide Web. Any of you can give a short definition of World Wide Web, this old thing of 30 years ago? You have to speak louder. Of course, place for information, a way to find them. That's fine. I will go to the definition that he gave. And Tim Berners-Lee, exactly what your colleague said. The World Wide Web project merges the techniques of information retrieval and hypertext to make an easy but powerful global information system. Consists of documents, links, indexes of special documents, which rather than being read may be searched, the result of researches, and other document containing links to the document found, blah, blah, blah. Great. Simple protocol, HTTP, good. And so, what is an hypertext? Because the sixth word of the 20 words that defined the World Wide Web was very simple, you understand, was hypertext. What's an hypertext? Anybody else? Yeah, you are eating hypertext. Please. Oh, no, I apologize. The question is too simple for you. So, no, I don't, no. I take just volunteers. And the word is too simple for you because, of course, hypertext is part of it. But think about it because you are using them. But did you think about what it represents? It is an hypertext. It's a text which is not constrained to be linear. And here I want to comment still a little bit, because here it says interesting thing. We know all these things, but it's nice to take this opportunity in order to hypertext is a text which is not constrained to be linear. Text that is free to the chains of linearity. A text that could be in the form of a web, a tree, a leaf, whatever you want to call it. A text that explodes into space and doesn't need to be written from left to right or from top to bottom. As you grasp what it means, you are already inside it. You are moving like hypertext. There is no top to the web. You can look at it from many different points of view. For a civilization that had been accustomed for centuries to ranking everything from top to bottom and had always tackled problems by organizing them in order of size, cioè per la cultura gerarchica che ha caratterizzato tutte quante le organizzazioni, il cui modello fondamentale era l'esercito, le organizzazioni civili nei secoli precedenti, this man was saying that the web was a world with neither a beginning nor an end, neither a before nor an after, neither a top nor a bottom. You could enter from anywhere, and anywhere would always be the main gate, but never the only main gate. Absolutely revolutionary. And that's what you are eating with bread and butter every day. But this is a great, great revolution in the history of information. Now, at this point, how can we describe the concept of augmented humanity on this basis? And this is very easy. A human being who is not obliged to be linear. Even here I'm going to my beloved text. A human being who was not obliged to be linear. Someone who didn't have to stick to one mental space. Who refused to let the world dictate the way their souls should be structured, of the way their mind should move, who didn't always have to use the main gate. A new human, one would be tempted to say. This is where, exactly at this point in the discussion, the digital revolution hints at the fact that it was born at the mental revolution. This is the first time that a hypothesis has been put forward that a different human being was behind the development of digital technology, and that a different human being will most likely be the result. You have different human beings from former generation. You guys and girls of the Z generation in general are very different from the Y and X generation who preceded you. Anthropologically. And in the middle, there is this incredible evolution. A couple of other points important before going to the break. Why did Baricco title his book The Game? With the launch of the iPhone is the watershed between the whole hierarchical concept of the culture and organization and the new non-linear organization. The game was elevated as a foundational scheme of an entire civilization. Gamification. From the iPhone on, nothing has survived unless it has the genetic heritage of video games in its DNA. Why? But because the engineers that were coming from that generation were used to the culture of the gaming. And they brought the DNA of the gaming inside the architecture of this new wave. And you find all this, the icons, the touch screen, all these things are related, strictly related to the culture of the game. And this introduces the concept of superficiality and experience. Superficiality. Nicholas Carver wrote a book in 2010, says, the title was, Does Internet Make Us Stupid? That what I was in some way suggesting last time about ChatGPT, but it's very different. Internet is an infrastructure of the thought. ChatGPT is a replacement of the mental activity. However, in these terms, I would accept consideration and creative development if you want to develop this theme working at home. Steve Jobs, on the opposite, thinks in a completely different way. Simple is not just the opposite of difficult. It is also, above all, in this case, the opposite of complex. What Jobs really wanted to reveal to his audience was that the iPhone allowed highly complex processes to converge into the absolute purity of a simple action. He wasn't saying he had simplified the telephone, not at all. What he was keen to point out was that he had created an extremely complex tool that was extremely simple to use. Somehow, the device had managed to conceal all its complexity in a hidden compartment. All that was left, floating on the surface, was the fruit of the complex processes, the final synthesis, where the rudimentary practical heart, icons to touch, lists, and pages to scroll. The sensation was very pleasant, and those friendly, smiling, colored icons epitomize it perfectly. Now it is easier to see how their babyish appearance masked something far more sophisticated. They were the emerging tips of immense, highly complex icebergs hiding somewhere behind the surface of the screen. They were there to mark the fact that the essence of experience had emerged from its underground caves and chosen the surface as its natural habitat. And this is the heart of the digital culture. I will save you the metaphor of the allegory of the cave that I will leave in any case inside your documentation, because it's very interesting to see how we are coming back 2,000 years. And the concept of experience, and we come this way to the concept of experience, knowledge, depth, from the 20th century to the digital evolution. So, if all the knowledge come to the surface in this set of nice, bearish icons on top of the screen of the iPhone, and everything followed the iPhone, because this is being, of course, the paradigm, the new paradigm for all the computer industry. How changes the concept of experience? The experience up to that moment, the experience of the 20th century and before, was a painful process, according to which, in order to learn, you went through a process. Think about the metaphor of the iceberg. Baricco says that according to Steve Jobs, the knowledge that shows up at the top of the screen is the tip of an iceberg. And below there is a lot of knowledge that you don't see, but it's there, it's available. The process, according to you, have to reverse the pyramid of the iceberg. In the former, up to year 2000, and even now, in many places, knowledge is a painful process through which you get the experience of the knowledge is a painful process to which you get down by studying, by listening to priests, to professors, to all what you want. And at the end of this painful trip, you get to the treasure of the knowledge, to the essence of the knowledge. According to this change of paradigm, all the knowledge is at the surface. What does it mean? That you don't need anymore priest, professor, and so on. Because most of this is a bit provocative, you understand. But, and it's not like this, because of course you need always somebody in order to guide you, help you, support you. But you have a completely different level of autonomy today, that you can access sources that are telling you in this moment, and some of you is checking, if what I'm saying are bullshit or what. The authority of the traditional authoritative owners of the knowledge is in complete crisis. So either you're very, how to say, solid in what you say, otherwise you're dead. That's the great substance of the cognitive revolution that I wanted to share with you. For new men and women, essence and appearance coincide. Good? Yeah. Almost at the end. Yeah, the resistance of the traditional elites. Traditional elites, of course, are in crisis, but how many legal, professional, professors and professionals are going to be replaced by generative AI? Lot. The trick is, of course, is to be able to position yourself to add value. It's true even for you. It's more true for you than for others. You need to develop a quid in order to make, to produce a value that's appreciated. Okay, 5 minutes of back. I believe that all of us deserve it. And then we are going to do to the last part. It's going to be half an hour, where we're going to take some fun on the opposite, discussing if there is still room for the truth in the information age. Thank you. You have 5-10 minutes, please. Somebody else? Who said this word? Abraham Lincoln? No, not exactly. I believe he's revolving in his grave. Anybody else? Churchill? This is the age. Come on. Who? How do you know? I understand why. ChatGPT. Okay, got it. No? Okay. So, in any case, congratulations. Joseph Goebbels. Joseph Goebbels, the Minister of Propaganda of Hitler. And this is really the, don't worry, any other politicians that you have quoted could have said the same thing. So don't worry if you say another name. If you tell a big lie and keep repeating it, sooner or later the people will believe it. But it's interesting that it was right, Joseph Goebbels, to say this. And I have to say that I had a lot of people that followed. And no, and the concept, of course, I cannot say that he is the inventor of the fake news, because many others invented fake news before him, of course. False, misleading pieces of information based on false evidence, presented as news that can be spread through any media with the aim of creating misinformation or disinformation. Tools, what? Of course, disseminated to mass media, television, broadcasters, new outlets, internet. Sharing has increased to social media and by actors such as influencers, entertainers, and even politicians. All things that you perfectly know. Let's go now to the champion of the fake news in this age, that, of course, with no surprise, it needs to be recognized, Mr. Donald Trump. And I make the example, classic example, the inauguration day of the first Trump presidency, 2017. And you see that this is Capitol Hill, and in front of it to see plenty of people, a crowd, reasonable crowd. And then, of course, somebody confronted it with Obama's inauguration days in 2009. And yeah, and I have to say that Donald Trump was extremely pissed off, because, of course, he couldn't accept, of course, that Obama had more people than himself at the inauguration day. So Trump's first White House press secretary, Sean Spicer, under instruction by Trump, of course, rejected the comparison, insisted that media was misreporting it. So, in January 21st, 2017, said Trump's swearing in drew the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration period, both in person and around the globe. He blamed the photos and coverage for minimizing the crowd, citing a lot of things, so on. He also said the National Park Service doesn't publish data about the inauguration and so on. Good. And the next day, the advisor Kellyanne Conway defended Spiter's claim as presenting alternative facts. Alternative facts. That's magic. A phrase that quickly became emblematic of the episode. So, what do we have? We have certainly a stream of thought and the new social or thought certainly based on presenting alternative facts. So I tried to understand, because Trump is a matter of study. A case study that you need to dig into to understand, because this guy is influencing the world. It's not something. No, he's not a jerk. This guy is really I do not remember a person that has such kind of influence in the world, recent world history. Now, so I've tried to understand what is truth for Donald Trump, and I've been looking not for an unbiased source, but for a source that could be not considered as unbiased by principle. That's ChatGPT 5. I've asked ChatGPT, what's the truth for Donald Trump? And ChatGPT, about after a lot of think, he said, I'm thinking. What does he say? It's truth for Trump is less fixed correspondence with facts and more with a rhetorical and strategic tool. Okay, fine. A few points. Truth as persuasion, not verification. Trump often presents as true what resonates emotionally with his audience, regardless of whether it matches external facts. His criterion is impact and loyalty, not correspondence. Interesting. Persuasion, not verification, so nothing to do with the real facts. Truth as a loyalty marker. For him, truth can function as a test of allegiance. Those who accept his version of events, for example, the election for claims, demonstrate loyalty. Those who contradict it show opposition. Okay, fine. Truth as branding, he frequently labels his perspective with emphatic phrases like everybody knows, believe me, fake news. This makes truth part of brand identity, distinguishing us, his supporters, from them, media and opponents. And finally, and that's a bit ridiculous, truth versus fake news. Trump often equates truth with his own narrative and fake news with any media coverage that contradicts or criticizes him. In this sense, truth becomes highly personalized. So it depends on how we define things. If we define truth in this way, it's certainly consistently saying the truth. And this brings us to consider very serious what your colleague said last time and impressed me a lot. And he said the truth is dead and we have killed it. And they are referring directly to Trump. And this is a consideration that deserves a serious consideration, yeah. And we should wonder if he's right. And maybe he is. But certainly, we should go to the root of this, what truth historically has been considered. And if there is room for an absolute truth as of today. Well, in the meantime, we went even down in terms of fakes. We went to the deep fakes, images, videos, audio, which are edited or generated using artificial intelligence tools, which may depict real non-existing people, synthetic media, and the modern form of a media prank. Yeah, there is no limit to the words. But let's go to the question that's interesting for us. So I went to to consider, first of all, Cartesius. As I was saying, the founder of the classical rationalism, truth is the clear and distinct perception of the mind, guaranteed by God's non-deceptiveness. If God is giving me these faculties, he cannot deceive me. And therefore, and how can I check this? Can I verify the conformity between intellect and reality? Through the method. Substantially, a systematic method to attain certain knowledge. So you understand that we are talking about epistemology. This is, of course, is a first form of well-structured epistemology, primarily outlined in his discourse on the method. And this method is structured into 4 fundamental stages. Methodical doubt. You have to doubt about everything that is not evident or unquestionable, aiming at to eliminate any knowledge not founded on solid grounds. First. Second, accept as true only what is clear and distinct, meaning it leaves no room for doubt. So, you clear everything through the methodical doubt, and then you accept as true what is clear and distinct. So, whatever I perceive very clearly and distinctively is true. And then you break down every complex problem into ideas, or idea into its simplest and most understandable elements, and you construct knowledge by starting from simple elements, progressing to understand more complex matter. These are the 4 steps according to which you can ascertain the truth and verify, certify the correspondence of intellect and the reality. Good enough. In the middle, there are 400 of history of philosophy, and unfortunately, this is not a course of philosophy. But so I am arriving immediately to the guys who are closer to us, Baricco and Ferraris. According to Baricco, truth and post-truth. And Baricco says, very provocative statement, guys, an inexact thing, but capable of circulating quickly in the blood system of the world, is more true than exact thing that, however, moves slowly. Think about this. So he says, at the end of the day, the problem is not the correspondence to an ideal essence of the thing, but the thing that moves slowly and comes first more quickly to the surface of the perception. So, the case of vinyl. And please, without checking your beloved sources, answer the question. To know for vinyl in 2016 has overtaken digital music sales. Is this true or wrong? How many of you believe this is true? Raise your hand now. How many of you believe this is wrong? Raise your hand, please. Do something. Do something. There are not wrong mistakes, wrong answers. So basically, those who believe that's wrong are a limited minority, but who believes that's true? All the other ones? God, but what do I have to do to get a reaction from you? Either it's right or wrong. It's right or wrong? Wrong. So it's not true that this happened. Okay? Who says that it's right? Who said it is right? Who raised the hand? Cats. Come on, guys. Either is right or is wrong. Okay. The answer is the following one. This series of vinyl in first 10 years of the century plunged and disappeared virtually. Then came out for some amateurs and for a very limited niche market. But suddenly, for Christmas in 2016, they became very fashionable, particularly in the UK. And it's true that turnover for vinyl in 1 week before Christmas 2016 in the UK overtook digital music sales. So, it depends. You are both right. You understand? It depends on which, according to which concept of truth you answered. And so here, quick truth introduce the concept of quick truth. As we will see, Baricco believed that the concept of post-truth, is, what you say, a hoax concept, cioè un concetto bufala. Because there is not post-truth, there is the truth of this time. That's the quick truth. And the quick truth is a truth that has been redesigned to be aerodynamic in order to reach the surface of the world. That is, in order to be easily understood and catch people's attention. So what's important is the aerodynamic characteristic of the truth. Quick truth is truth that has been designed to be aerodynamic in order to reach the surface of the world. That is, in order to be easily understood and catch people's attention. What it loses in precision and exactitude, it gains in brevity and speed. In fact, it continues losing precision and exactitude until it decides it has gained sufficient brevity and speed to break out into the surface of the world. What survives is not necessarily the most precise or exact truth. It is the one that travels more quickly, beating the others to the surface. Okay. So, if you're happy with this, follow Baricco's point of view on this point. And however, there is something else. Professor Maurizio Ferraris thinks the opposite. Is the leader of the New Realism movement. New Realism movement says that, quoting St. Augustine, the truth asks to be told. This is even more true for anyone who works in silent communication. So he says that in any case, the effort to go back to the truth that as the basis of the correspondence of intellect and reality is a necessary effort to undertake. Says that it was television and the web that inaugurated the fast balance practice. It's the same that said before Baricco. Both of them say the distortion of the original concept of truth comes from the media, substantially, and now becomes getting bigger with the internet. The unforgivable equidistance between the evidence reported by a researcher who has been studying a problem for years and the opinion of any person. the false equivalence between those that Professor Ferrari distinguishes between strong documents and weak documents. So he says we have to go back to the evidence resulting from serious research, registration of deeds, contracts, quindi andiamo a vedere gli atti, la documentazione originale, tutto quello che ci riporta in un sforzo di ricerca faticosa ma necessaria alla verità. E distinguiamola dai weak documents, memorie, tracce, sentito dire, eccetera. Ed è particolarmente polemico, per esempio, con i Novax. So, people's medicine would like to replace experts' medicine, and that's not good news. We are dealing with the liberalization of truth, says Ferrari. So it's unacceptable, he says, that you go to you switch on the television and you hear people that don't have any serious experience and professionality discussing matters that they are not seriously experienced with. And they have the same credibility, or tend to have the same credibility than the real experts. However, post-truth is a philosophically significant concept, and its emergence defines an essential characteristics of the contemporary world: the alliance between the cutting-edge power of the web and the most ancient human desire, the need to be right at all costs. And the ideology driving post-truth is the atomism of millions of individuals convinced that they are right, not collectively, as the ideological churches of the last century mistakenly believed, but individually. And the great game of post-truth is all here. While for Cartesius the truth is an index of itself and of falsehood, the supporters of post-truth argue that the best way to affirm one's truth is to call one's neighbor a liar. You with me? So we come to the conclusion, and I try to summarize the debate between Alessandro Baricco and Maurizio Ferrari on truth and post-truth in order to give them some more solid ideas about the position of both, and even to enable you to choose or to define a third way, a third road. For Ferrari's post-truth is a real phenomenon of our time. An industrial production of falsehood, so un'industria dei falsi, made possible by digital platforms and by long cultural background that weakened the idea of facts, beginning with the motto, there are no facts, only interpretations. Quindi è il risultato della demolizione del concetto di verità da parte sia dei media, sia di una tendenza all'individualismo che porta ciascuno a ritenere che la sua verità è, quindi ad andare a una verità frattale, ognuno ha la sua verità. There are no facts, only interpretation, which the new realism opposes. We need to return to facts, to procedures of verification, and to institutions of truth. Baricco, on the contrary, questions the very label. For him, post-truth is a conceptual hoax, una bufala concettuale. We don't live after truth. There is no post-truth. In the digital revolution, the design of truth has changed. Now it's lighter, faster, situated, ma therefore less true. Concetto fondamentale per lui. Non viviamo in un periodo del dopo verità, della post verità. Nella rivoluzione digitale il design della verità è cambiato. Oggi la verità ha un design più leggero, più veloce, più collocato, più situato, focalizzato. Ma questo non significa che sia meno vero. Si valuta sulla base della velocità con cui, grazie alla sua configurazione aerodinamica, riesce a salire alla superficie. Better to understand how mechanism of production and validation of facts have been transformed instead of opposing truth and lies in a moralistic way. So, Yeah, sure. Yeah, your colleague is saying that, of course, probably it's even an effect of the fact that the sorry, attention span is lowering dramatically. Probably is right, certainly. But all these effects are psychological effects that are tied before to the internet and then to the generative AI. And here, the trade-off, the issue is the trade-off. Was the optimal trade-off enabling us to get the maximum output in terms of productivity while enhancing as much as possible the exploitation of our brain? That's a difficult trade-off because it's not automatic, on the opposite. Well, we can certainly develop this concept. But, well, this is, I believe, the end. I have something more for you. First of all, this is a set of readings. Luciano Floridi, The Fourth Revolution, Chapter 4. Alessandro Baricco, The Game, A Digital Turning Point. Maurizio Ferraris, Post Verità e Altri Enigmi. Of course, the textbook of Floridi, but all the other ones, of course, are important sources to suggest to read. This is, here you have this paper, Luca del Fiore, and the video of Alessandro Baricco that's very useful because you get a summary of his thought. But I will try, I don't know if I'm going to be able to give you hints for your take-home projects. And so I have two for you. The first one is this one, a possible take-home assignment: the debate on technocracy, ethics and democracy in the 21st century. And so there is a debate on Repubblica. Of course, if you speak English, you can easily translate it to whatever tool. And here you have all the links of this set of articles. There is a huge debate today. Most of them are some of the main intellectuals today in Italy. You'll get it in your slides tomorrow morning. And definitely, in any case, I would suggest you to peruse them, to go through them, because there are a lot of new ideas about concepts like techniques without ethics is the real news of this century, or many other things. Why the 900th century finished with the West. But I have another one, and this one: the relationship between technology and democracy, according to Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and Sam Altman. That's very nice because you're going to be confronted with opinions that substantially, I don't know what to say, but are not certainly traditional. And so I wouldn't comment on this. I would just definitely suggest you to, if you're interested. Peter Thiel, just to tell you, says that the concept of democracy is toxic because it prevents the development of the technological innovation. And therefore, democracy is not an environment where technological innovation can develop. And these are very articulated. These are not platitudes. There are 45 pages where he explains this thing in a paper. Elon Musk, Sam Altman, there is a philosophy that I quoted before. They say, these guys, of course, are big oligopolists, but they are not stupid. And they are, Sam Altman, for example, and Elon Musk are supporters of the theory that says that we are so rich that we have a social responsibility. And therefore, we can take care of the development of the welfare, in particular of all the people that are losing their jobs because of automation and because of generative AI. The only thing says, who have the best position in order to decide? The governments? No, ourselves. So Sam Altman decided that he will provide huge funds for welfare projects. To whom? To Elon Musk. Because he believes that's in the best position in order to administer them. So you understand that this, and is an entire philosophical, there is an entire philosophical stream behind that you definitely the new utilitarianism that deserves to be studied. Guys, there are a lot of things that you can discover if you get fond of these matters. With this, thank you for your attention, and we are going to meet on Friday. And on Friday, we will discuss the impact of ICTs on politics, and in particular on the relationship, the human beings as interfaces. So we have been talking last time about the technological interface. This time we're going to talk about human beings as interfaces. And all this is related, of course, to all what is said in the last two lectures. So please review them, because otherwise you are missing some of the key elements in order to follow the intellectual path that we are making together. Thank you. Have a good day.